Hello and welcome to Camnet TV Main News. To present, my name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Top stories in the news tonight. President Hakainde Hichilema petitioned to lift former President Edgar Lungu's immunity. Citizens protest demanding action on housing development. Reintroduction of Office of District Commissioner disappoints the women's movement. In international news, Sudan military takeover as Army Chief appoints a new governing council. And in sports news, CHIPOLOPOLO ready for Mauritania.
Africa is rising to a new dawn of integrity and accountability. Are you tired of being swindled or buying fake or illegal properties? Would you like to sell or buy genuine property? Would you like to list your property on both local and international market? Don't waste your time. Call the professionals, the SGK Properties on +260 762 166 018. SGK Properties. Your business assurance is our priority.
Another news in detail. Two civil society organizations championing better housing have delivered a petition to the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development demanding better housing infrastructure. Speaking when they delivered the petition to the ministry Friday, Team Representative Joyce Lungu says residents in densely populated areas are distressed from poor housing, which becomes a disaster in the rain season. And in responding to the petition, Housing and Infrastructure Development Permanent Secretary Richard Banda says the petition delivered will receive government attention as housing is a very critical basic human right. The two organizations are the People's Process of Housing and Poverty in Zambia and the Zambia Homeless and Poor People's Federation. More in the following report.
They marched in numbers to deliver a petition to the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development demanding better housing infrastructure, good road network, quality supply of electricity, among many other challenges they face in their different localities in Lusaka. And a representative from People's Process on Housing and Poverty in Zambia says the resources allocated to the ministry is not adequate to tackle the challenges they face.
I think muona mvula yamene yabwera manyumba yambira kugwa ni vanhu va mkomboni kalikiliki George Chawama Misisi ndiye vanhu vali mu problem na maflat na tumanyumba twao kugwa.
Concerned, we were actually quite disappointed that we only got 1.4% of the national pay, which was there for being shared with housing and other social amenities. We believe this ministry should be well resourced.
Others have also lamented over the challenges they face in their localities and are worried that if the matter is not well addressed, the rain season will bring many disasters to their areas.
Like water, and electricity and housing. Sometimes if the rain is raining, you find like the houses are already flooded with a lot of
food like amboloka manyumba ambira kugwa mwa George. But then zile kumanti.
So when we have a good drainage system, which means zangara tripe matika makombo gamanzi.
Kudi mitwalao chita apply land ndani apply ku council tufai ko land baranda chi murete ama ndani kade ama bank statement murete fish taturekwanisha. Naso chitiromba kubuteko uchati benga twafisha kwanga kudi land bapera ko abalanda basanga kwa pa kuikala ubuchushi na buchiramo.
And in responding to the petition, Housing and Urban Acting Permanent Secretary Richard Banda, who represented Minister Charles Milupi, who was in Parliament at the time, has assured the people that their petition will be delivered to the relevant authorities and will receive the much-needed attention to ensure that their complaints are tabled.
The Minister, and on behalf of the Permanent Secretary, we've received your petition and it will definitely receive government attention. I think definitely as a ministry we recognize that housing is a very critical basic human right. And we've been working with stakeholders, including yourselves, in order to address the challenge of housing, especially amongst the low-income or the poor communities of our country.
Prudence Jota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Some United Party for National Development UPND members have presented a petition to State House demanding that President Hakainde Hichilema lifts the immunity of former President Edgar Lungu. Former UPND presidential campaign team member Vene Hajombwe said Mr. Lungu is not above the law for him not to be subjected to investigations. And UPND Lusaka District Information and Publicity Secretary Matomola Likwanya says Mr. Lungu's immunity should be lifted to pave way for investigations in various alleged corruption cases. Mr. Likwanya feels the former president should be investigated for allegedly having been involved in various corrupt activities and abuse of office during his tenure of office.
They call themselves concerned citizens who want justice to prevail. Friday, 12 November 2021, they held a procession to State House demanding that President Hakainde Hichilema raise a motion to lift former President Edgar Lungu's immunity. Former UPND presidential campaign team member Vene Hajombwe said Mr. Lungu is not above the law for him not to be subjected to investigations.
We've told the president to say, in 2015, Mr. Edgar Lungu, against the constitution of our land, allowed his ministers to stay in office illegally, consuming taxpayers' money. Yes. When Kanyama Clinic has got no medicine. I think those are some of the things that we aligned in this petition to the president, and we humbly know that His Excellency, being a listening president, on behalf of the people of Zambia, will listen. Lastly, to my side, Mr. Edgar Lungu will not be the first one in this country. We had Mr. Chiluba's immunity being lifted and he was investigated. Yes. So why won't Mr. Edgar Lungu's immunity be lifted today when there are issues bending behind him? So we want his immunity to be lifted as soon as possible.
And UPND Lusaka District Information Publicity Secretary Matomola Likwanya says Mr. Lungu's immunity should be lifted to pave way for investigations in various alleged corruption cases.
Constitution of the Republic of Zambia, Article 43, and amended in 2016, Article 98, does provide that the President can pass a motion in the National Assembly of removal of a former head of state. Therefore, our grounds that we are advancing today are that former President Dr. Edgar Lungu has been mentioned in acts of terrorism. Some Rwandan rebels testified before the courts of Rwanda that they were sponsored by former President Edgar Lungu. We also hold the view that former President Dr. Edgar Lungu abused institutions of governance, such as the DMOMU, the police, such as the courts.
He is hopeful that the president will act on their demands.
Answers on the illegal exportation of mukura to Malaysia. Yes. They are demanding answers on the procurement of the presidential jet. Yes. They demand answers to the fire tenders. Yes. The Zambian people are demanding answers to the recruitment of Chinese in the Zambia police service. Yes. The Zambian people, they demand answers to the people that gassed the Zambian people. Yes. These answers can only be answered by the former head of state, who is closely attached to these issues, such as the ANIB scandal, such as the building of the expired drugs. Therefore, we call upon the president, because he's a listening president, to listen to the pride of the Zambian people.
However, some Patriotic Front members and other non-state actors have been opposing the move.
I think it would be uncalled for Parliament to take such an action, or for people to call for such an action. I think you and me believe and understand that President Lungu has done the best he could for this country.
So I want to call upon the Zambian people to understand that there has never been a time when a president, the immunity is lifted and they win the case. Let's look at Chiluba's case. He was acquitted. Arabi's case, he was acquitted.
Records indicate that two of Zambia's former head of state have had their immunity lifted, including Rupia Banda in the year 2013 and the late Frederick Chiluba in the year 2002. Will former President Edgar Lungu become the next casualty? For now, we can only wait and see how President Hichilema will respond. Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
Patriotic Front founder member Julius Komaki has challenged the United Party for National Development to intensify its anti-corruption fight by targeting the senior government officials who served in the PF administration. Mr. Komaki believes that the move will help the PF identify corrupt members and be able to sideline them in its rebranding process. And Mr. Komaki says those who served as members of the Central Committee cannot be trusted with the responsibility of reviving the party because they allegedly failed to guide the party to victory. He says acts of violence aided by poor leadership by the Secretariat made the PF lose the August 12 pose. He was speaking when he was featured on the Camnet TV breakfast show.
The messages to the Central Committee, because we are in the process. We are in the process of choosing the leader who will take over from his former president, Dr. Edgar Lungu. But again, we have a job to do. It's not like where you hear people are speculating, no, we want this one, we want this one, we want that one. No. We have eminent people, able-bodied, men and women in Patriotic Front who are trained. That's why this crusade of corruption, they need to intensify it so that we know who is trained among the Patriotic Front. So then they help us. Then the way forward of Patriotic Front, we need to go back to the drawing board. For where we made the mistake is for the intra-party elections. So once we make a mistake in life, we need to go back to the drawing board. So we need to have internal elections because we don't trust those structures which were there.
Police have charged and arrested 3 male persons, namely Dominic Shingalwe, aged 35, Albert Mukutu, aged 30, and Sakala, aged 44, for the offense of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, in which Pandwe Bumba, aged 32, is the complainant. This is in relation to an incident that happened on the 6th of November 2021 at Monze Roadhouse nightclub, around 23 hours, in which Pandwe sustained injuries. The victim, who sustained a cut on the forehead and general body pains, reported the matter the actual day of the incident. The 3 suspects are expected to appear in court soon.
Police have charged and arrested 3 male persons, namely Dominic Shingalwe, age 35, Albert Mukutu, age 30 years, and Lawrence Sakala, aged 44 years, for the offense of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, in which Pandwe Bumba, age 32, is the complainant. The complainant sustained a cut on the forehead and general body pains. This occurred on the 6th of November at Monze Roadhouse nightclub around 23 hours. The 3 suspects will appear in court soon. In a related development, police have charged and arrested Bumba Pandewe for the offense of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, in which Dominic Shingalwe is the complainant. He sustained a swollen eye and painful private parts. The suspects will appear in court.
Zambia Youths Association in the fight against corruption, ZIAFAC Executive Director Malindi Kaima has suggested making the operations of police digital in order to avoid money exchanging hands and stop the rot of corruption. Mr. Kaima says despite illegal roadblocks being banned by the Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security, police have not stopped the vice, hence the need to put up a system which will ensure that payments are made digitally to police accounts. According to latest 2020 corruption rankings, Zambia's corruption cases are on the rise, with the police service being one of the major culprits. More in the following report.
A non-governmental organization whose aim is to combat corruption has suggested using smart systems in order to curb police corruption at roadblocks, which is reportedly rampant. Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security Honorable Jack Mwimbu recently announced the ban of illegal roadblocks as these inconvenience motorists and are used to siphon money from them. It was advised that only designated security checkpoints would exist on the road. Despite these interventions, reports of illegal roadblocks have continued. Zambia Youth Association in the fight against corruption, ZIAFAC Executive Director Mr. Malindi Kaima says police operations should be digitalized to avoid the trend of money exchanging hands, as this breeds room for corruption.
We are calling for a digitalization so that we minimize human interaction. So that is what I would say in short.
Maybe just additionally, so this would mean police officers do not get any money by hand, isn't it?
Exactly. The moment you want the money to exchange hands at the point of offense, then you are saying you go and negotiate. And the moment an offender and a police officer negotiate, then there is a 100% chance that people will pay a lesser fee. And by the way, that makes our save money. The driver will save money by continuing driving. They will save time, by continuing driving. They save money because they will pay less. And so, because of the value system, corruption is two ways. By the driver and by the officer. There are drivers in Zambia who will not believe, who don't have triangles for 30 kwacha. And so when they are stopped by a police officer that they don't have triangles, and the police officer asks for 20 kwacha, they will part away with the 20 kwacha instead of buying the triangles, because they want to continue the journey. So those are the value systems. That is why as Zambia Youth Association in the fight against corruption, we are hammering integrity and decency.
The ZIAFAC Executive Director states that corruption has many negative effects, which include widening the gap between the rich and the poor.
Do we have integrity? Do we embed integrity in our activities? Do you know that integrity creates decency? Integrity attaches decency to human life, to human action. What are the evils of corruption? One of which is that it makes a few people rich and a lot of people poorer. So it makes more people poorer, more in number and poorer in depth. So corruption increases the depth and width of poverty.
According to the 2020 Corruption Perception Index, Zambia dropped from 113 out of 180 countries in 2019 to 117 out of 180 countries in 2020, indicating an increase of corruption activities in the country. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Zambia's Republican President Hakainde Hichilema says the Zambian government has managed to secure £1 billion worth of investment support from the COP26 conference held in Scotland, Glasgow. President Hichilema says such kind of investment symbolizes the confidence cooperating partners have in his administration. And President Hichilema says the fight against corruption in the country is not an ethnic undertaking targeted at a certain group of people, as is being purported by some people. The president says such sentiments have the power to bring division in the country and should not be entertained. The president was speaking when the Zambia Congress of Trade Unions ZCTU leadership called on him at State House Friday.
Should apply here. So we support that. We welcome the idea of also reducing the retirement age from 65 down to 55 and of course kiss the years so that workers can retire and run their own businesses whilst they are still energetic.
Want the same diamond in Botswana worked for the Swanas. The economy is better. The same diamond in West African countries brought blood. So, but I'm commenting about driving informality, disorganized and unsafe mining methods, fights, licenses. Most licenses were given to PF cadres. We're reviewing that. Use that asset to then bring from informality to formality. And then we can lay capital on that and growth will come from there, Mr. President. So I just wanted to indicate that timber is another. If you see how many of you are benefiting from Mukula here? How many of you? I mean, what is it delivering to our economy? Nothing. So we're looking at those areas and trying to formalize those things. But we're also focused on green economy now. We should be proud that we came back from COP26 with £1 billion of investment support. Just our second outing. So there's a lot of goodwill that this change of government has brought. We must.
Vice President Mutalena Lumango has cautioned the opposition Patriotic Front members still in government against sabotaging the government, urging them to perform their duties professionally and avoid sabotaging the government. She says sabotaging the government by the perceived PF supporters can not only disadvantage the government but the people of Zambia. Speaking during the Vice President's question and answer session in Parliament, Mrs. Nalumango said it is crucial for the people in government positions to understand the vision of the government. Mrs. Nalumango says government will not be pushed to fire people perceived to have been employed by the former governing party, the PF, because it does not want to address the issue in a haphazard way just to get rid of some people. The Vice President was responding to a question from Zambezi East Member of Parliament Brian Kambita, who wanted to know why the UPND government is taking longer to fire PF civil servants whom he suspects of sabotaging the government affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So truly Zambians are concerned because it is important that in strategic positions people are put there that understand the vision, that are not fighting the vision of the government of the day because of the bias towards maybe a party that may not be in office. So we will do it, but we will do it well. He has referred, Madam Speaker, to the issue of ZESCO. The appointment of ZESCO is not up to the President appointing of the ZESCO management or director. It's not done by the President. It is done by the board. And therefore, the responsibility of the President, the responsibility of the Minister is to have the board in place. And we have not been running to just put there, fill these boards with cadres. We want professional work. And therefore, ZESCO has had the board appointed. So if there is a need to remove the current MD, it shall be done and be done properly. That goes for every other official, senior official sitting in government office. They'll be removed properly, lawfully. We are not going to be lawbreakers, but surely we expect people still in offices to function for Zambia and not to act, like saboteurs. Because if you do something wrong, you are not doing that thing wrong against the President Hakainde. You are doing something wrong against the Zambian people. So as long as you remain there, before you are removed, if you are to be removed, do the work properly. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
The non-governmental gender organization coordinating Council NGO-CC has noted with concern the impending reintroduction of the office of the District Commissioner by the New Dawn administration. Organization Executive Director Ngwase Mwale notes that while the movement appreciates the effort made by the head of state thus far, the women's movement remains concerned with the relevance of this particular office. She notes that the United Party for National Development, UPND, in opposition, was very clear on how the office of District Commissioner was a liability and a drain to the National Treasury, wondering why they have decided to maintain it. The movement has since urged the UPND and specifically President Hakainde Hichilema to reconsider this decision and scrap off the office so that the resources served can be channeled to other pressing areas such as health and education. Ms. Mwale has cited Zambia's economic situation and in particular the high debt, which calls for prudent use of public resources, hence calling for the abolishment of this office. Government has expressed interest in supporting efforts by stakeholders to move towards a low-cost, low-conflict and low-carbon economy to promote climate change adaptation strategies. Speaking when she launched the Systematic Hydropower Configuration 2 report Friday, Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Energy Veronica Mwiche has underscored the need to analyze alternative development paths for future construction of hydropower dams in the country. And Worldwide Fund WWF Acting Director Isabel Mkalawai has highlighted that the report recommends the focus on the northern region for hydropower planning to achieve diverse location of hydropower production in Zambia. More in this report.
In Zambia,
Hydroelectricity plays an important role as it provides 80.4% of all electricity nationally, which amounts to almost 2.4 gigawatts of installed hydropower. Friday, November 12, 2021, Ministry of Energy and the Worldwide Fund WWF launched the Systematic Hydropower Configuration Planning Tool and Report aimed at providing a national-scale assessment of future hydropower configuration scenarios in Zambia. At the launch, Minister of Energy Permanent Secretary Veronica Mweche has underscored the need to analyze alternative development paths for future construction of hydropower dams in the country.
Move towards low cost, low conflict and low carbon economy and promotes climate change adaptation strategies to safeguard the most vulnerable people and the most exposed ecosystems and species. It is for this reason that government was delighted when Worldwide Fund for Nature Zambia Country Office expressed willingness to support the government in developing a systematic hydropower configuration planning tool that analyzes alternative development paths for future construction of hydropower dams in Zambia. Ladies and gentlemen, dams and their associated reservoirs provide an important source of energy, water for irrigation, protection against floods, and municipal water security.
Mrs. Mweche says government is ready to work with various stakeholders in advancing the energy sector.
The ministry has indeed found a befitting and robust partner in you and your organization. I further wish to applaud you for the gesture of donating the laptops that you have just officially handed over to the ministry, which will go a long way in ensuring a leading role in electricity planning. We will make sure that these laptops are put to good use, that they are well taken care of, which is a demonstration of the appreciation that we have for the support that is being given to us by your organization.
And WWF Acting Director Isabel Mukelabai has highlighted that the report recommends the focus on the northern region for hydropower planning to achieve diverse location of hydropower production in Zambia.
The document sets out to provide a national-scale assessment of future hydropower configuration scenarios in Zambia, and the goal of the assessment is basically to show a range of possible hydropower development options which are able to achieve desired energy production outcomes while avoiding unnecessary hydro-environmental impacts from dam construction. It is important to note that the objective of the proposed study is not to create a detailed national hydropower development plan, nor to explore possibilities of where new hydropower facilities can be built, nor how hydropower can be integrated in a broader national energy plan, but rather the goal is to complete the anticipated environmental impacts of different pathways of future hydropower development at dam locations that have already been proposed.
Meanwhile, the WWF has donated 4 computers to the ministry for the Integration Resource Plan. Alex Shimba, Camnet News in Lusaka.
An environmental conservation and non-governmental organization says Zambia's goal to fight climate change and achieve a green economy by 2030 may not be achieved if financing to this sector is not increased. In an interview, Miju EcoCare Executive Director Mr. Timothy Perry says while government has been reaffirming its commitment to fighting climate change, only 0.6% of the 2022 national budget was allocated to environmental protection. While commending government for showing its political will towards ending deforestation and other vices recently at the Climate Change Conference in Scotland, Mr. Perry says this should be coupled with adequate funding. More in the following report.
On the issue of financing, I would like to talk about 2 specific issues. The first one is the percentage of the latest budget that's actually committed to environmental protection. You will notice only 0.6% was actually given to environmental protection. That is not showing commitment to the cause. That is not implementing climate action. That is not doing what you are promising and saying you will do. If truly we are serious about fighting climate change, about environmental protection, about sustainable development, about the dream of having a green economy, then the amount of money we put into environmental protection is supposed to increase. Definitely it should be way above 1%. Now, we are not saying more money should be put into environmental protection for no reason. We are saying so because that's the most important resource we have. Actually, all other economic sectors we look at are dependent on the environment.
You're watching Camnet TV News, not just another channel. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more news after the break.
This is the Rusitu Irrigation Project. It's a government project funded by the World Bank through IDSP.
The project involved laying over 18 kilometers worth of interlinked water pipes that will supply water to the 280 hectares land for small-scale and commercial farmers in Rusitu of Chirundu district. We worked on 35 kilometers of the road network and also constructed 159 concrete water hydrants of different sizes in all 3 tiers. The state-of-the-art water pumping station at the banks of the Zambezi is fitted with 9 water pumps, a dedicated concrete reservoir, a 500 kV automated standby generator, a fully automated pump switching system that is interlinked with a second reservoir of 27,000 cubic liters capacity, which is fitted with 7 water pumps, a standby generator and floater tanks for that extra water pressure on the irrigation lines. Savenda Construction is grateful to the Zambian government and the World Bank for giving us the opportunity to be part of the history of Rusitu, as the project will benefit over 282 households once completed, and is just one of the many that Savenda Construction has embarked on, owing to its track record and capacity to deliver as per requirement. Savenda, save nations, develop Africa.
Team, the trajectory of the business looks very positive, and it looks like we'll be able to launch the ministry. Has so much data.
Mom.
Yes, baby.
It says here, global warming and climate change is caused by the pollution from careless activities of human beings.
Wow.
Son, do you know I can turn my phone into a TV remote?
How's that possible?
It's so easy. Check this out.
Be smart, be fast with mega data from Zamtel. Get your 15 GB mobile data for only 100 kwacha, 30 GB mobile data for only 200 kwacha, and your 70 GB LTE data bundle with free Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Visit our Facebook page, website, or service centers countrywide for more information. Zamtel, your digital lifestyle partner.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes, and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
Africa is rising to a new dawn of integrity and accountability. Are you tired of being swindled or buying fake or illegal properties? Would you like to sell or buy genuine property? Would you like to list your property on both local and international market? Don't waste your time. Call the professionals, the SGK Properties, on +260 762 166 018. SGK Properties. Your business assurance is our priority.
Welcome back. The Zambian Society for Child Protection has called for an end to child sexual abuse, which has been on the rise in the country. Speaking at a meeting held in Lusaka Friday, University Teaching Hospital Head of Gender-Based Violence and Child Abuse Care, Dr. Rokaya Jinwala, says an average of 100 cases of child sexual abuse are reported every month translating into almost 1,000 abuse cases in a month. Dr. Jinwala says there is need to raise more awareness on child sexual abuse by taking the fight to the community where the abuse occurs. And Zambia Society for Child Protection Chief Executive Officer Nicholas Malaya says child activists will be marching from Lusaka to Kapirimposhi to raise awareness on child sexual abuse. More in the following report.
Cases of child sexual abuse have been on the rise in the country, a situation that can be described as unfortunate considering the fact that most children who find themselves in such circumstances cannot defend themselves. Zambian Society for Child Protection says finding the root cause to the problem is the #1 step to finding the solution. Speaking at a meeting held in Lusaka Friday, University Teaching Hospital Head of Gender-Based Violence and Child Abuse Care, Dr. Rukaya Ginwala, says stakeholders have since proposed to walk from Lusaka to Kapirimposhi to raise awareness on child sexual abuse and how it can be detected.
To give you an idea of how many cases we see every month, we see roughly about an average 100 cases a month. And we know that translates to about 1,000 cases every month in Lusaka alone. Because for every one child who reports, there are 10 children who have not reported. There's a lot of things that happen in the background and people end up not coming forward.
The doctor has also highlighted how to identify child sexual abuse and says no child should be abused regardless of the circumstances.
The reason why we want to walk is first and foremost to raise awareness. Raise awareness about, first, we would like to prevent the cases if we can help it. Secondly, we want people to be aware of how to identify the cases. A lot of cases come when it's too late. Parents are not suspicious, teachers don't know what's going on. But if you are quick and you know what to look for, then we'll be able to get cases coming earlier.
Other stakeholders have also added their voice to child sexual abuse and the need to put an end to the vice.
Over time, we have had stiffer laws enacted in this country, but we have still witnessed a constant, consistent rise in the number of reported cases of child defilement, among other gender-based crimes.
Obviously, to advocate for the child, as we are doing now. And in this walk, I'm going to walk. Don't look at my age. I want to walk for the child.
And speaking at the same event, Zambia Society for Child Protection Chief Executive Officer Nicholas Mayela has appealed to stakeholders to come on board and support stakeholders that will undertake the walk to Kapirimposhi to ensure that the proposal is a success.
What can we receive to sustain the arduous task of walking these 200 plus kilometers? So we're asking for whatever assistance can come. Water, drinks, fruits, energy things that can help us walk.
Prudence Jota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Zambia National Education Coalition ZANEC Executive Director George Hamusunga has called on government to come up with clear policies on how public institutions of higher learning in the country will be financed to avoid work stoppages, which in turn have a negative impact on education. In an interview, Mr. Hamusunga says it is not possible for these institutions to fund themselves, as has been the suggestions from different stakeholders in the past, stating that funds raised through business ventures would not be adequate to support these institutions, which would necessitate a rise in tuition fees. Meanwhile, Copperbelt CBU lecturers have withheld results for students at the institution as they are currently holding a sit-in protest over stalled negotiations of salaries and conditions of service. More in this report.
The problem of lecturers downing tools at the University of Zambia, UNZA, and the Copperbelt University CBU over salary grievances has been going on for many years. Apart from citing late payment of salaries, lecturers at the two institutions have been demanding better pay and have used ghost laws to communicate their message. The Zambian National Education Coalition ZANEC says the onus is on the new administration to ensure that this perennial problem is permanently resolved as it has a negative effect on the quality of education. Protests erupted at UNZA recently after lecturers downed tools over non-payment of emoluments, a situation the government promised to correct. Lecturers at CBU have currently withheld students' results which were supposed to be released on 8 November 2021, lamenting stalled negotiations over salaries and conditions of service. ZANEC Executive Director Mr. George Hamusunga has called on the new administration to resolve these problems immediately.
We know that over time there has been, a debate around who should really fund these institutions. And the situation has been that government expects these institutions to raise their own money, when in fact by law their role really is to teach, and government has to provide the resources. Also, we have seen institutions, not engaging in income-generating activities because they understand the law. Government must develop a financial plan, or they must develop a policy for financing universities that is very clear, that outlines the role of government and the role of institutions. And this policy should be able to guide us in the short, medium and long term so that we can manage the expectations that we have now from the universities and from government.
He adds that the outbreak of the coronavirus has already slowed down learning, hence no room should be left for go-slows.
The effect of these go-slows that we are experiencing at Copperbelt University and the one we had at the University of Zambia have a huge impact on the quality of education in higher learning institutions. As you may be aware, we have already lost a lot of time because of the impact of COVID-19 on education. Much of the learning time that we have lost means that the universities have not managed to cover everything they should have covered. But they will proceed to examine, students on the little that they have covered. Meaning that some students will graduate having been tested on only very little content.
Meanwhile, University of Zambia Lecturers and Researchers Union Unzalari Secretary General Mr. Kelvin Mambwe says for the problem to be resolved, there needs to be an overhaul of public institutions.
No, I think the long-lasting solution to these issues is starting afresh again. Mainly, it requires government to do something and do it urgently and at once. You clear all the outstanding dues for both UNZA, CBU, and other related institutions, and give them certain conditions, okay? Certain conditions that will ensure that these institutions don't fall back into debt, okay? And once that is done, I think we should be able to get back to normal. And of course, they need to ensure that
stakeholders in the education sector are expecting the new administration to find long-lasting solutions to the problems that have been obtaining at the two institutions. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
A university teaching hospital secretary, Hannes Kalasaula, has told the Lusaka High Court Judge Joshua Banda that the Mercedes-Benz alleged to belong to late veterinary doctor Evans Mwengwe was dismantled at her home in Lusaka's Chilenje area by two of the accused persons. Ms. Kalasaula testified that on the 14th of June 2021, her mechanic Josat Tembo, whom she had known for 5 years, had requested to park the alleged Mercedes-Benz at her yard for safety. The witness explained that she was not aware that the vehicle was stolen, hence granted his request but told him to only spend 2 days doing his job. Kalasaula was testifying in a matter in which Kena Nigeria, 23, a businessman, Kigan Zulu, 38, a businessman, Doris Ndumba, 23, a student, and Josat Tembo, 42, a mechanic, are alleged to have murdered Dr. Mwengwe after he gave them a lift from Kawe to Lusaka. More in this report.
Trial in the murder case of veterinary doctor Evans Mwengwe has continued before the Lusaka High Court, with more witnesses appearing before court to connect the dotted piece of evidence of how he was murdered. The deceased is alleged to have been killed after he offered a lift to 4 people from Kawe to Lusaka. The said 4, among them a 23-year-old female student, have been implicated in this murder case. Kenan Jerry, 23, a businessman, Keegan Zulu, 38, a businessman, Doris Ntumba, 23, a student, and Joseph Tembo, 42, a mechanic, have also been accused of stealing a Mercedes-Benz, a phone, 2 bags of maize, and a laptop after they allegedly committed the same murder. The court Friday morning heard testimony from Hannes Kalausaula, a secretary at the University Teaching Hospital, who testified that on the 14th of June 2021, her mechanic Joseph Tembo, whom she had known for over 5 years, requested that he parks a Mercedes-Benz at her yard for safety as he wanted to work on the vehicle. She testified that on the said date, Joseph Tembo and Keegan Zulu went to her place in Chilenje around 19 hours, where they started dismantling the said Mercedes-Benz and informed her that the owner of the vehicle was in urgent need of the money and could not wait until morning to dismantle it. She testified that the 2 accused persons had removed all the 4 tires of the vehicle and the battery, among other things. 3 days later, Josat and Keegan and a guy named Lion are alleged to have gone to the witness house to pick up the dismantled parts of the vehicle. Josat had earlier informed the witness that a guy named Lion was the buyer of the said vehicle, hence he was going to remove it from her yard, as he had only requested to park the vehicle in her yard for only 2 days. In concluding her examination in chief, the witness said she had no idea that the said Mercedes-Benz Keegan and Josat had parked at her yard was stolen. In the last session, the court had testimony that a shoelace was found around Dr. Mwenge's neck, believed to have been used to strangle him, and that he was found partially bent. Trial in the matter continues on the 19th of November 2021. Miriam Kemba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Lusaka High Court has granted a Livingstone resident leave to apply for judicial review against the Examination Council of Zambia for failure to process and release the 2020 Junior Secondary School Leaving Examination results for his daughter. This is in a matter in which Christopher Mkandawire has sued the Examination Council of Zambia, ECZ, in the High Court, seeking a declaration that ECZ's decision to refuse to process and release the grade 9 results of his daughter, Dorothy Mkandawire, violates Section 8 of ECZ Act, Chapter 137, hence it is illegal. In a notice of application for special leave to apply for judicial review out of time, Mr. Mkandawire states that the respondent's decision violates the child's right to education as guaranteed by Section 14 of the Education Act No. 23 of 2011. The applicant is seeking an order of mandamus directing ECZ to release his daughter's grade 9 results. Mr. Mkandawire is now seeking damages from the Examination Council of Zambia for their negligence and failure to perform its statutory duty. You're watching Camnet TV News. We'll take a break, but we'll be back with international and sports news.
Infirmity never had a legal right in here anymore because she was healed in her soul. He also took care of that accusation in the court where he said, I loose you, and that means to acquit someone of a crime.
Why does he say, be strong and be courageous, Bamutale? Number one, you've got to be strong. You've got to be courageous when claiming the things that belong to you.
If you're up against principalities and powers,
en contra de
and Satan
principados,
is knocking you around,
y el enemigo te está dando contra ti,
put praise on in your car.
pon alabanza.
Put praise on.
So we must learn to depend on the Holy Spirit to tell us what these things are.
and what's the next thing, and what the church ought to be doing, rather than conform to everything that is going on.
He says, you're blessed. He says, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father.
He will preach the gospel with great power and influence, I say, even to the nations of the earth. And I began to prophesy his destiny. As I did that, the Spirit of the Lord said, now rebuke the spirit of depression.
The mystery of your unfulfilled prophecy is found in what I'm saying today, if you hear what the Spirit is saying, because the King is speaking.
That everything that God has given you will flourish, because you have his mind like never before, in Jesus' mighty precious name.
Africa is rising to a new dawn of integrity and accountability. Are you tired of being swindled or buying fake or illegal properties? Would you like to sell or buy genuine property? Would you like to list your property on both local and international market? Don't waste your time. Call the professionals, the SGK Properties, on +260 762 166 018. SGK Properties. Your business assurance is our priority.
Welcome back. And in international news, Sudan's military has appointed a new governing council more than 2 weeks after seizing power. Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan would remain the head of the council. The 14-member body excludes members of the main civilian coalition. It has drawn condemnation from the United Nations. In other news, Tunisian President Kais Saied meets with civil society activists as clashes flare again between security forces and the residents of the town of Al Gareb, protesting against the reopening of a landfill site they say is a public health hazard. For more in international news, here's a roundup.
Once again, the protesters take to the streets of Khartoum. The city has been at the center of pro-democracy demonstrations since the uprising that overthrew former leader Omar el-Bashir. The formation of a new sovereign council described as an extension of the military's takeover. And in the United Nations, the Office of the Secretary General was quick to react.
We're obviously taking a look at these developments. I would say they're very concerning. We want to see a return to the transition as quickly as possible.
The transition government was intended to guide the country towards democratic elections in 2023. It was disbanded by military leaders last month, the Prime Minister placed under house arrest, and a number of political figures imprisoned. The Security Council held a hastily arranged meeting to discuss the crisis. No statement was issued by the Council as a whole. The UK is the penholder, which means it takes the lead on the issue, and the ambassador had this to say.
We remain gravely concerned by reports of further unilateral action by the military, which is against the spirit and the letter of the constitutional declaration. We had a very helpful briefing from the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Volker Perthes, who was very frank in his assessment that the window now is closing for dialogue and for peaceful resolution.
The protests in Khartoum could also have been intended to spur international reaction, but for the moment, the Security Council is weighing what its next action will be. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, United Nations.
The Tunisian President Kais Saied has given in to the demands of thousands of protesters over the poor waste management in the Sfax region. President Kais Saied met representatives of civil society on Thursday to discuss efforts to end the waste problem. Locals had complained the site was full and that toxic chemical waste was being dumped at a facility only meant for household wastes. We received an invitation from the President to explain and deliver the message of the residents of Aghareb who are suffering from the ongoing problem of garbage. He understands their claims and pledged to meet again in 2 days with him and the Minister of Environment to reach a final solution to this rubbish dump in Aghareb and also to open an investigation into the circumstances of the death of Abderazek Lacheheb and Amal in Aghareb. Peace be upon them. The wider Sfax region has been gripped by weeks of protests over the rubbish crisis, which has seen trash pile up in the streets. Since the Aghareb facility closed, municipalities have refused to gather waste, calling on the state to find a sustainable solution.
A land of plenty has now turned into one where people are struggling for food in northern Kenya. Environmental activists and World Food Programme officials blame the situation on extreme droughts caused by climate change. The river in Nakaria, near Kalokol, is a seasonal river, meaning it flows when it rains and dries up when it doesn't. It's quite difficult and not an easy task to get water from this hole, but sometimes you dig and you find logs that are stuck in the sand. Frequent and longer dry spells have meant the river rarely ever flows anymore, and locals digging boreholes for water have to dig deeper and through harder ground.
For quite a number of years, there hasn't been a lot of rain in this area. So that has actually been making life quite difficult. Besides food crisis, there is increasing also need for water for the communities around.
The increase in droughts has meant that the wells are struggling to serve the growing population of nearly 100,000 people. It's thought that around 600,000 people in the county are in need of food or money, while around 60% do not eat properly. The World Food Programme has warned of high levels of malnutrition.
We believe that climate change is a driver of the many issues that we experience here. We are increasingly seeing the drought episodes escalating and increasing, and therefore households do not have enough of the supplies of milk and meat.
Reporters say forecasts in the region have predicted further droughts, which could lead to a water crisis in the area.
It's now time for sports news. In sports news, senior national football team interim head coach Beston Chambeshi says the CHIPOLOPOLO boys are ready to face Mauritania in a Group B Qatar FIFA World Cup qualifier to be played on the 13th of November 2021. Chambeshi's hopes have also been solidified following the trooping in of foreign-based players, among them Fashion Sakala, Patson Daka and Luambo Musonda, who arrived in the country on the 10th of October 2021 to participate in Saturday's game. Chambeshi says despite Enoch Mwepu being injured, the team will put up a good fight and win the game. And CHIPOLOPOLO captain Luambo Musonda has called on soccer fans to show up in great numbers and support the team, as this will give the team confidence to win.
Thanks very much. For sure, Enoch is our pillar. He has been one of the good players and one of the players who has value in the team. And I cannot say much, it's an injury. And for sure, we have a replacement on that. And we are hoping the one who's going to cover that position will do his best.
Well, a game is always different. It's always different. like the way we played against them in their own home, it would be a different one here. So we wouldn't say they would play that much because we are playing at home and we have to.
That sporting note brings us to the end of the news, but we take a look at stories making headlines once again. President Hakainde Hichilema petitioned to lift former President Edgar Lungu's immunity. Citizens protest demanding action on housing development. Reintroduction of Office of District Commissioner disappoints the women's movement. And in international news, Sudan military takeover as Army Chief appoints new governing council. And in sports news, CHIPOLOPOLO ready for Mauritania. We now look at the Camnet verse of the day coming from Psalms 23, verse 4 to 5. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Thank you for watching Camnet TV Main News. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Bye-bye.